All right, hey everybody. Today, we're gonna learn how to make our own car parts, starting with a steering wheel holder that mounts to the visor. All right, the first thing we gotta do is figure out where and how we're gonna mount this thing up. I've removed the visors because they're useless. This is where we're gonna mount up this bracket. We're gonna take a bunch of measurements and write all those down, and then we're gonna take them to the computer and start designing some kind of ellipse bracket system, and we'll figure out along the way how we're gonna make it modular and how we're gonna mount up the hook and potentially other pieces as well to this whole system. So let's go do that and figure it out. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is take a bunch of measurements. Also take some pictures, but be aware that while this may seem like a good view, and this is where I got a picture earlier, because of the distortion of the camera lens and other perspective stuff, it won't be super accurate, but it can give you a point of reference. And then good high quality set of calipers. I have some digital ones just to make things easier for me. And let's measure some things up. All right, the driver's side hole is 16 millimeters from the top. Holes are about 3.8 millimeters. Give some tolerances, obviously, when we make ours. It's about 64, so in between here. Yeah, let's go design some stuff up.
So I went ahead and brought that picture into my CAD software of choice. Right now it's Onshape, but later on in the video it's going to be Fusion 360. Not a huge deal. Took my measurements though and used those as the source of truth. Like I mentioned, the picture, while helpful, wasn't quite accurate to the dimensions, so some parts may look wrong, but hopefully will end up fitting okay. Got this first initial piece done, threw it over to the printer, went ahead and got that thing printed in just a few minutes. This won't be the last time we're here, but we got our first test piece to begin our iteration process.
All right, let's go see if what we got will fit it all. Okay. I got the sizing of the frame right. Not sure if those holes line up yet. Okay. So it looks like we're about 4 millimeters off on this side and like 1.5 on this side. So we're gonna move both holes over 4 millimeters here and 1.5 millimeters here, and probably make both of these holes a little bit bigger. That should get our base plate set up correctly. We have the diameter, or the ellipse shape mostly correct, so we're on the right track. That's the nice thing about 3D printing, is that I'm printing this with a really quick speed, very little infill. So I'm wasting hardly any material. It takes like 6 minutes to print this, which is my advice when doing these proof of concept tests. Don't print with the finest quality, don't print with the highest infill, just print it so you can test it, check it out, because probably your dimensions are a little off, the tolerance of the printer, the accuracy of the measurements, etc. So just print it, test it, figure it out, and that works out pretty well. So let's go fix this, make some adjustments, and then get our base plate working for this visor mount. We're almost there, I think. All right, got our new bracket plate. Let's grab some bolts. I think the visor bolts are M6x1, so I'm hoping that these M6 bolts that I have are the correct pitch. We're gonna go see if they fit or not, and they're a good size for the holes we made. These are 6.5 millimeters, bigger than the holes in the car, but enough so that these bolts should go through, and I don't know, let's go see if it fits. Almost definitely not correct. Don't know where I read that, but these are definitely not M6. They look maybe more like M5 and 4. So we'll grab some bolts in a sec, but let's at least see if our new bracket lines up. Looks like we're off on the right and on the left. So let's do one more iteration and we should be there. I'll measure up some of these a little more and find some places that we can actually anchor those measurements to, so I'm not just, you know, wildly guessing. All right, let's fix that up. All right, so I went through a few iterations. I also switched material to PLA for my test prints. I'm gonna go back to PETG whenever I do my final version. I'm not gonna get too in the weeds on 3D printing materials. There's a lot of good guides out there, but for my use case, I think PETG will be fine, durable, and should withstand most of the heat that it's going to see. If you have more exotic materials, you could do like ABS or carbon fiber stuff. But anyways, landed on a version that is a little bit smaller. So instead of trying to fill the whole plastic gap, because that could vary between car to car, I'm going with a system that should be a little bit smaller. And then also found out that the kinds of threads in the visor mounting are kind of like sheet metal screws. So for now I've got some self tappers. I think they're number 10 by 1 1/4. Which should be the right size and should fit, but I may end up tapping and drilling that to be like an M5 bolt down the road. But for now, I think this system will be fine. So let's go make sure these all line up and work, and then we'll move on to actually getting the modular system mounted to this and build our hook and stuff for the steering wheel. There's it temporarily mounted in place. It fits pretty well. Everything lines up. Might need to change out the self tappers I'm using, but I'll figure that out off camera. Not a huge deal. These seem to be fine, but that should mount up. Now we need to actually make our hook, and ideally have a modular system so I can remove the hook when I'm driving, so that way it's not going to be in my sight lines. I don't want to see it when it's not in use, but I also want it to be quickly attachable. So that said, I went back and forth on what modular system I was going to build and was trying to get really creative when I realized, hey, there already is a modular attachment system, GoPro tri-mounts. So I went ahead and found a little base online and ended up making some modifications so it fit the bracket. You'll see here I end up slicing some of the edges off. And this whole system means I can use an existing ecosystem while also expanding on that ecosystem and contributing back to it. I'm gonna end up building a hook, as you see here, that ends up fitting the GoPro or the action cam tri-mounts, because other cameras can also support that too. End up building a hook that will hold a steering wheel. Maybe you're at a car show or you just want somewhere nice to put it. And the goal with the hook was to be removable, so therefore making it work with this GoPro tri-mount system. But also big enough to support a variety of steering wheels and strong enough that way I could hold the weight. So you can see here I go back and forth on a few different dimensions for the hook, making sure it's thick enough to support my steering wheel, but not too large that it might get in the way of the window or other parts of the car. And one of my last little pieces of advice is I think there's a lot of value in contributing to existing standards. So if you don't need to, don't make a new standard. Try and find one that already exists and contribute back to that ecosystem. Okay, so we've got our pieces, our final pieces, printed in PETG, which is a more heat resistant and slightly malleable filament, which should be good for the car. I'm not gonna leave it in the sun very long. Even being in Texas, I don't daily drive this, so I think this material will be fine, and it's what I can print. You may notice they look pretty furry, for lack of a better word. There's lots of filament kind of everywhere. PETG has a tendency to string, so I'm gonna go clean this up. Then I'm gonna mount it in the car and I'll show you what we're doing next. So I've got a little number 10 self-tapper, which I checked and should be a good size for these visor holes. I gotta add the other bolt, but it should be pretty good. Okay, so I actually had a couple other updates I did after that last clip you saw. I want to show you those real quick and also, again, encourage iteration because I had a few more changes and I'll show you why I did them. I ended up raising the height of the tri-mount, which gave more room for my sort of compression screw and the bolt that will hold it to the, hold the bracket to the car. So I added some more height there. I expanded the radius for this nut so it was easier to place in when you're in the car. And then also reduced the tolerances on the hook so that way it's a lot easier to move around without any fear of anything breaking or binding. This is it, the whole thing kind of put together. Let's go finally, last time, bolt it into the car and we'll get some glamour shots of the wheel and stuff mounted up to it and I'll show you how easy it is to work. All right, everybody, thanks for watching this episode. I appreciate it. There's one thing I would say that's a good takeaway from today, that it's sometimes okay to spend several days and several hours learning something new and making your own thing instead of just buying something online. I'm not an expert. I'm still figuring out how to do CAD and how to make car parts, and I might still change some things. But that's the fun part about learning, is I get to keep doing that and trying new things and making adjustments. And it never has to be perfect. I just get to keep trying more. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. See ya.